everyone, my name is Helena Hitsman. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm wrapping up 7th week of 2021 where I read 7 different comics book per day and I'm sharing it with you. And that week 7 books I read were 2 collected volumes of Something is Killing the Children. The comics is exactly about what the title selling us. Something is killing the children and that's Erica's job to fight it. It's all happening in the small American town that names Archer's Peak, and Erica, killer of something that's killing the children, is coming there to save some lives. I loved how Erica was portrayed. I loved her eyes. I loved how mysterious and not ready for attachments was she, and I loved how children was behaving like children, and children who survived in a severe, very cruel events and saw something that was just not for them, not for their age, and they were reacting exactly like children would react to this kind of events. There were a lot of portrayal of PTSD, a lot of adults who were helping the kids and trying to protect them. Not all of them were, but majority were. A lot of bravery and a lot of stupidity from adult side as well, and it was very realistic portrayal of how would people and organizations behave and structured around this kind of something that killing the children, and it was creepy in a realistic way. I was eager to know more and I was eager to jump into the next issues, and I highly recommend it. It's not for children, it's very cruel, and there are a lot of blood, there are a lot of parts of human body that are disconnected from the body itself. There are a lot of cruelty and violence. It was a bit of harsh read for me, but I recommend it for someone who like horror, for someone who like action-packed horror. It was fully colored. I was really grateful for Miguel Muerto to do his work because I love colored comics, and it was just a great time when I was reading it. Artistically it was done pretty well. Again, the character design I really liked. On the third day I was reading Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. It's a horror book. Why it was so horror-packed? I mean, it wasn't exactly horror, it was like more of Victorian-esque horror stories, like scary stories, very creepy, very old-fashioned. It has this kind of, Victorian vibe on it, even though the time period wasn't specified exactly in each story, but there were a lot of historical details and fashion details as examples that was pointing out to certain periods of time, in costumes, in how people dressed in there. But I loved it so much. First of all, I loved Emily Carroll's drawing style. Artistically, she's just my jam. I loved it so much. I loved how women are portrayed there. I loved how women are drawn there. I loved the way the bodies are presented there. It was just perfect. I loved it so much. I think I said love so many times already, but that's how I feel towards Emily Carroll. I already read a bit of different comics that when I looked at the cover of it, I recognized her style at the same second. I was like, oh, that's Emily Carroll drew this cover, and I was right, and it was a bit of a surprise for me, but her style, the way she drawing hands and legs and faces is so recognizable and so sweet and so, my taste. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. It was creepy, but not in the way that you couldn't sleep at night after reading it. Creepy, but I loved it. I enjoyed it so much, and there were just the right amount of text. Sometimes when I'm reading certain comics, it just certain graphic novels. I'm sorry, that was a graphic novel. When I'm reading certain graphic novels, it's just oh, it's so blurb packed. It's so packed with this dialogue. It's so packed with this, bubbles of text that I don't exactly see why it was made in a format of comics, in a format of graphic novel. Why it was not made as, heavily illustrated book, because it's written like a book. But in this case, Emily Carroll just have a perfect balance between art um, and text. It's just amazing. I'm impressed, I'm scared, and I'm satisfied. Next one, the first book I read that week, wasn't that satisfying for me because I just, I tried one Julia Maroh graphic novel last year. It was her famous Blue is the Warmest Color, about female on female romance, and I really heavily disliked it. I disliked her style, I disliked the story itself because it has some very, very stereotypical or unrealistic elements to it, and it was just, not satisfying for me. And I tried to read another part of her work, which is this big comics publishing house imprint, and I didn't like it so much. It's again LGBTQ focused graphic novel. It's about uh, this guy named Jake Hyde, who has this weird birthmarks on his hands and on his body. That's why he's wearing clothes that cover his arms all the time. And he has his best friend Maria. Well, he thinks she's his best friend, but she thinks they have a relationships and she's in love with him. But he doesn't get it easily, which is very weird. Like she's friend zoned, and in a friend zoned way, not in the way like that some men sometimes explain friend zone, but in the friend zone way. It was very uncomfortable for me reading about their relationships because Murray has such a low self-esteem to continue with this friendship while clearly he is not into her, and he doesn't want to continue this relationships romantically, but she's so blind towards it. And while she is discovering the truth during the comics, she is trying to deal with it internally during the plot. But I heavily disliked how it was portrayed. I felt it was so unfair for her, and it was perpetuating some very unhealthy ideas of what friendship between men and women is. I didn't get it and I didn't like it, and she was clearly very blind um, to the situation at whole, and it triggered me a lot, even though I never had this situation myself. But I was so compassionate towards Maria, and that made me not like Jake Hyde too much because he was also very blind to his feelings and to his identity. He liked guys more than girls, but he was very unconscious about this. And then his relationships between him and his Asian American classmate Kenny Lynn kind of developed. It was a bit strange of type of story for me because it was like one gay guy in this town, which is called, very strange name, I guess, Truth or Consequences is the name of this town they're living in. And they are it's only like the only openly gay guy in the city, and they fall in love with this main character. Like it was a bit strange. Like he literally had no choice, and he just went to this gay guy, and they had a romance with him. But also, what I didn't like is his pushy and very, very over controlling mother. I regret that I continued it. I really dislike Julia Maroh's style. Her, the same big lips on every character, the same. I don't know. Does she has a quota for blue hair characters or something? Because was a main theme, the main color in her first book, the the blue is the warmest color and one of the characters has blue hair. That's how the main love interest recognized her. But in this book it was just unnecessary, and I don't know if that in every story of Julia Maroh, if she has some kind of, draw a character with blue hair challenge in each of her graphic novel. But honestly, I'm just being petty right now. Honestly, if I liked the book, all of the things I just said, all of the things I'm nitpicking right now would not be an issue. But I was heavily focused on the smallest details that will allow me to say I didn't like it for a certain reason, but in general, I didn't like it because of the art style and because of the plot itself, because I don't like superhero stories. And by the time when I was reading this book, I was saying, like, yeah, that was the first and the last superhero story in my life. I clearly don't like the whole concept of it, the whole idea of it. I have never watched any superhero film when I was a kid. I never read superhero comics when I was a kid. I will not continue with DC or Marvel comics in the future because I don't like the whole concept, the whole idea of it, and the whole atmosphere of superhero, type of stories and the theme of it. But I was wrong. But I can say this now, after reading another very superhero-ish book that I enjoyed, I heavily enjoyed, and it was by the authors that I will mention next. But by the time when I finished it, I was like, that's just not for me. So I'm not saying that's a bad book. It was a bad book for me. And I'm not ashamed to say this, and I'm not ashamed to say I will not read a single Julia Maroh book in my whole life because her art style just irritates me so much. I see so many disadvantages in it and so many artistically bad choices and so many anatomically bad choices. I mean, that's just nitpicking, That's what I'm doing right now because objectively she's okay, but personally I just feel so put off from her artistic style. Let's go to the next author who I enjoyed so much and who I just loved, whose art I loved, and that was my gem. That was something I found and I loved so much, and that was Erin Hicks and her graphic novel Friends with Boys. It's telling us about Maggie, who was homeschooled her whole life, and then when she is entering her, I guess, high school. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was high school. The first year of her high school, she's entering into the normal school because the mother left their family, and she grew up with her three brothers, and her whole life she was friends with boys, and now she has a lot of struggles with starting communicating normally in a regular school, and she is missing homeschooling times. She's missing her mom a lot, and she is coming and there are two other kind of outsiders, girl Lucy and her elder brother Alistair. Alistair is so handsome, but anyway, and they're kind of a mysterious duo that Maggie started being friends with, and her elder brother just saying her maybe that's not the best people who you want to be with, and the whole story just starting to unraveling from this point. And I love the story. I love how it has some, again, magical realism elements, some ghosty elements. That's a spoiler, but it was just so nice and so exciting. I love how the brothers are portrayed during the main plotline happening. There were different small themes that were there, and we come to discover them, and we come to just reflect on some topics during the plot. It was just good. Not even good, it was perfect. And what I really disliked about the book and about Erin Hicks, that she officially wrote in her blog that there will be no continuation of the story, there will be no next part, you know. That was heartbreaking for me. And the story itself, don't understand me wrong, the story itself, it's pretty closed, you know. There is very understandable ending, and it's logical, and you know, there is some questions that are not answered, but you know, they are more metaphorical questions, you know, where the mom left, what will happen with the family dynamic and family relationships, will mom return to the family or not, etc., etc., and how their relationship will continue. But in general, god, the story had a clear ending, and it was logical, and it was, you know, it wrapped up everything in a good way. But I just wanted more. I wanted more of Alistair, and I ship him with Maggie so hard. I wanted more of brothers. I wanted more of, you know, the friendship dynamic there. It was just so good, and the art was perfect. I loved it a lot. Next graphic novel called Bloom by Kevin Panetta with art of Savanna Ganucheau. The topic of the book is baking. You know, that's the theme that we can see during the graphic novel. The main character named Ari, helping his family with their Greek bakery, and he's not enjoying baking that much, but another character of this graphic novel named Hector, who came to the town to, I guess, sell his grandmother's house. He is enjoying baking so much, and he's baking a lot of salmon, traditional dishes, pastries, and he's so passionate about it, and he coming as a worker to the Ari's parents' bakery. And that's how their romance started. It was so nice, so sweet, so heartwarming, so full with this perfect smell of fresh baked bread. I just enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed art style a lot. And you know what I didn't like in this book? It was the, you know, the main conflict. I'm just trying to make it spoiler free. Okay, one character done another character wrong, and at the end of the book they're meeting accidentally. One character apologized to another one directly accepting the apology, and they're just moving forward with their relationships. How the one character accepted the apology of another was too quick for me to believe the whole thing happened, you know, to believe the seriousness of the thing they done. And it was nothing to do with cheating or their relationships, exactly like their romantic relationships. It was, you know, generally bad action, lying. And that was the moment that a bit let me down. You know, I wanted more conflict resolution. I wanted to see more of a struggle, I would say. I wanted to see more how this character who done him wrong overcome his ego. The apology was sincere, but I wanted to see more of his grief and more of him missing the other character. That's what I wanted to see, but I didn't see it, and that was one bad moment in the whole story. But in general, I'm ready to overlook it, because just for how wholesome the story was in general, and how easily and slow burnishly, if it's grammatically correct to say this, you know, it developed, the romance developed. It was so satisfying, and I was waiting this first kiss for so long, for so long. It was just great. It's something I feel like, you know, fans fans would like, but not in terms of the main parent and fans, but in terms of, you know, background pairings. I will just insert two characters in there and you would understand me better, I think. It was this type of romance, and it was so great. It was also, it was friends to lovers trope, and it was just done perfectly, for my opinion. I now want to see more friends to lovers in books and in graphic novels. I was so taken away with the Bloom. The next one and the last one was Mox Nox by Joan Cornellà. It's a Spanish wordless comics, which I guess parts of it was published in Joan Cornella's social media, and it was pretty popular on the internet because I saw it. I definitely saw it on multiple occasions on multiple websites, you know, as humor pictures, as memes or something. And it was, I would not classify it as horror because I saw some Goodreads lists classifying this comics as horror, but I won't do this myself. But of course, Goodreads lists are made by people, the same readers as me, and we have our right to have different opinions. For me, it wasn't horror, but it was very dark humor, very absurdist humor, and I enjoyed it. Not to the point that I loved it completely and it was so perfect. I didn't like the art that much, but it was very good for the purpose of the dark humor, you know. So in general, it was a nice read for me. It was a quick read. It was, you know, wordless comics, the sense of which you can easily understand from each panel, and there is not such a linear plot in it. It's just, you know, a collection of smaller comics, smaller panels with an absurdist joke and with a, you know, very random events happening and forming a joke altogether. If it's if it's a normal explanation of such a book, but I hope it is. So I enjoyed it. It wasn't something very special for me. I was smiling a few times through the book, but it wasn't like, oh my god, that's so unusual. It was unusual, it was creative, but it wasn't something laughable for me. But it was okay. So that's how my 7th week of this challenge went. I'm very happy to share it with you. I was really glad to, and I get really excited in both bad and good ways while I was creating this video. I hope, I am sure it will be heavily montaged and it will be cut, you know, throughout the video. So I'm apologizing for that. English is my 3rd language, so I'm still learning public speaking. Thank you for watching. If you have any opinion on this comics or on any other comics or graphic novels, you can leave it in the comments below. I will be happy to read something on your recommendation. I'm saying goodbye to you. Thank you for watching.